You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. There are reports, Matt Zenitz over at 247 was the first to have it today, that Wesley Walker, a defensive back from Tennessee, has been targeted by LSU in the transfer portal. I'll give you a little bit of backstory on Walker, and then I'll kind of delve into my feeling on how he may fit with LSU, really if they should be targeting him, et cetera. So we'll get to all that. But Matt Zenitz had it first, and so apparently Walker is expected to visit LSU next week. And Zenitz notes that Walker was a starter for Tennessee this past season. So a couple things. First of all, Walker's been around college football for a long time. He was a member of Georgia Tech's 2019 signing class. So he's been in college as long as John Emery, for perspective. Redshirted at Georgia Tech in 2019. Played in 2020, but that was the COVID year, so everybody got the year for free, right? So really his first year of eligibility that counted was 2021 at Georgia Tech. Well, in 21, he played in 10 games, starting 8 times, and then transferred to Tennessee, where he played the last 2 seasons. In 2022, played in 13 games with 2 starts, and then this past year, started all 10 games that he played in, then missed the final 2 games there in Rocky Top with an injury. So in total, you've got a guy that over the course of 5 seasons, he'll be entering his 6th season of college football, over the course of 5 seasons has played in 33 games with 20 starts and has been at 3 programs. So started Georgia Tech, been at Tennessee the last 2 years, transferred to Louisville for the spring, and after spring football, hit the portal again. So he's looking for a place to spend his final year of eligibility, and LSU will get a visit next week. There's 2 parts of this. There's the player and how that may fit in, and then there's sort of the circumstance. And let me take those in reverse order. First, the circumstance is interesting because of what Brian Kelly said at the end of spring. I'm going to play this for you. We played this a bunch. This isn't the first time you've heard it, but this is going to provide some more context around why I've continued to say what I've said about this comment in particular.
Brian, as you go into the offseason, like you said, kind of evaluating this roster, other than maybe defensive tackle, are there positions that y'all might target in the transfer portal?
I don't see any other positions that we need to be in the transfer portal for other than the defensive tackle position, really.
Remember, that wasn't at the beginning of spring. That was at the end of spring. So you could say, well, Brian Kelly thought they would just look at defensive tackle, but then they went through spring and realized they might need defensive back help. No, that was at the end of spring and said, why? I don't think we'd be in the portal for anything other than defensive tackle help. And the point I've made pretty consistently about that comment is Brian Kelly didn't need to paint himself into a box. You know, and Brian's very good with the media. I mean, the guy was a political strategist. Usually he's very good in those situations. But in my opinion, a big part of the reason there was such a melt over not getting Dominic Williams and Simeon Barrow and then C.J. West and the way everyone's felt about this is because of that comment in particular. Because that comment made it seem like you're good everywhere else, like you're confident with everybody else, but D-line, D-tackle is a problem. We got to go get one, right? And because they emphasized it so much, not getting one made it feel like, oh my God, the defense is screwed, which I don't think that's the case. I'm going to get to more of that here in a second. But the other part of that is to say, well, at the end of spring, you weren't in the market for anything but a defensive tackle. Then why now are you in the mix for Wesley Walker? And I understand there's a family tie. One of the edge rushers in the portal right now, he and Walker are stepbrothers, and so maybe that's a tie where it's a 2-for-1 type deal. We'll say. I don't know. I don't know anything about Wesley Walker, his family, or if any of that might be tied in. And I'm really not even concerned about it. If he commits to LSU and ultimately joins the football program, I'll care much more deeply about it. But there was just no sense in painting yourself into the corner, because now it begs the question, well, you didn't need a DB at the end of spring, but now you're going after one? Why? And then number two, it created unnecessary urgency around defensive tackle. Now, the player himself, this is the other part of that conversation. This is a guy with a ton of experience. Okay, I just went through it. 33 games played with 20 games started over the course of 5 collegiate seasons. He didn't really play until his third year in college, the 21 season at Georgia Tech. He redshirted in 19, 20 was the COVID season, and 21 is when he really started playing at Georgia Tech. If you're just looking for a comp, Major Burns, for example. Major Burns has played in 27 games with 23 starts. So Walker has played in 6 more games than Major Burns. Sage Ryan, who's been a guy that's played a ton the last 2 years, 31 games played with 12 starts. Guys played in 2 more games than Sage Ryan with 8 more starts. So even your most experienced veteran defensive backs, this guy has more experience and at the Power 5 level, and a starter last year in the SEC at Tennessee, where he had 53 tackles, a forced fumble, and a sack. He's been a productive starting safety in the SEC. So I could say that's a better option than what you have currently. And that might be the case. But it's comparable to what you have with Burns and Ryan. And you've brought in Jordan Gilbert as well, who we're all assuming is a plug-and-play starter. I mean, what we saw in the spring was Gilbert and Ryan were your safeties, and Major Burns played that star position. Now, I'm never going to tell you, I will never tell you that experience, talented experience and depth is a bad thing. I'm not going to tell you that bringing in Wesley Walker, if he wants to come to LSU, with his 33 career games played, his 20 career games started, including starting 10 games last year at Tennessee, I'm not going to tell you that's a bad thing. Because you can add talent to depth, great. My question is why? If at the end of spring practice you didn't need a defensive back, it's not like an All-American hit the portal and you have an opportunity to add a transcendent type player. This is where it comes down to, is it really worth adding a player instead of developing the players you have? Because there's a lot of young guys. Kylan Jackson immediately comes to mind from Zachary. Really talented young player that I know this staff is high on, his athleticism, his ability, that I think has a huge upside. Deshaun McBride from Denham Springs was taking reps with the ones in spring. Now, I could ask the question. You got a 5-star, high 4-star, 5-star, depending on the service, freshman, or a guy that's played in 33 games with 20 career starts going into his 6th season. Who would you rather? I don't know that I can definitively answer that question. There's an unknown with Deshaun McBride, but I think it's also fair to say his ceiling is much higher than what you have with Walker. But with Walker, you have a veteran player. Again, I'm not telling you it's a bad thing if you add a veteran player, but you don't need a safety. You got safeties. You've got experienced safeties. You got talented safeties. You got guys that look just like Wesley Walker. Guys that have played a lot in the SEC, got some talent. You want to add depth, okay. But if you tell me where do you need talented, experienced depth, it's at cornerback. I mean, J.K. Johnson's healthy now, but we ain't seen him start. Zy Alexander's coming off a torn ACL. Jair Brown was kind of like a part-time starter play, but hasn't been like a consistent starter in his college career yet. We saw Stamps and Toviano play last year as freshmen. They took their lumps. If you tell me that LSU's recruiting a guy with 20 SEC starts at cornerback, now you got my attention. Because that's something you don't have on this team. You got Wesley Walker on this team. You want to add depth? Great. I'm all for it. Add experience, quality, depth. Great. I'm for it. I'm not saying don't take him. I'm just saying I don't think you need him. And I don't think you need a body at defensive tackle, which is a course I'm going to continue to reiterate. If you can add a starter, a proven starter at defensive tackle, great. Otherwise, stick with the handful of 5th and 6th year dudes you got on that roster that have been waiting their turn behind NFL guys like Mason Smith and Jordan Jefferson and Mekhi Wingo. Coach them up and see how they play. We'll keep you posted. Wesley Walker Set, apparently, according to Matt Zenitz, 247 to visit LSU next week. We'll let you know when he does and how it goes. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.